Oh, the world of expanded media in My Little Pony. Honestly, one of the coolest things in the entire franchise, because sometimes these stories are some of the best in the entirety of MLP, either in G4, G5, and hell, even G3. These stories pave the way for either lore, character development, or just fun and compelling stories. But they're also some of the strangest, as sometimes either be because of time, controversies, or Hasbro, these stories were scrapped or never saw the light of day, and one of these stories was the MLP G5 manga. A manga that had so much promise and potential, made by a passionate fan from Japan, but one that because of bad timing and Hasbro didn't see the light of day. So what happened? Well, let's find out. But before we get into the manga, let me tell you about the wonderful and kinda cursed world of MLP mangas in Japan. Now, I think whenever someone mentions MLP and manga, many people immediately go with the official G4 manga or the Puchigumi MLP manga. But one that I've never seen anyone talk about is the doujinshi MLP manga scene. Now, doujinshi is not a company or even a publisher, it just means self-publish. You see, back in the good old 90s, Japan was having a manga revolution, and everyone was buying mangas, and from this era some of the most popular mangas would be created. And with this demand, it was just normal that artists all across the country would want a piece of the pie. But sadly, not everyone made it. Companies had extremely high standards for artists, so not everyone would have the same opportunities as others. And this is where some manga artists began to post their own mangas under their real names. Yeah, that's not even a joke. And would you know it, a lot of artists were extremely successful. The doujinshi scene in Japan is one of the most interesting in the entire world, but one that also has a lot of controversy and dark moments, and sadly this also goes to the MLP scene. Now, a lot of the mangas people have published are not actually bad, on the contrary, there's people who have made amazing, funny and even epic stories in this medium, but sadly a lot of others have also done heinous things, and that's not even an exaggeration, as a lot of the mangas cover topics that I can't even cover on YouTube, and honestly, I think that's for the better. But one of the most ambitious projects ever attempted the doujinshi MLP scene was My Little Pony: A New Beginning, a 10-volume manga series that would have served as a retelling of the G5 story in a way that we've never seen before. The manga would have been made and published by Yuki Sakuro, and even having the permission and endorsement of Hasbro themselves to not only use their characters, but also the freedom to change and modify their stories and designs. What made this project so interesting at the time was the amount of people that were behind what essentially was a fan manga. Aside of Yuki Sakuro, you had companies like Shueisha and Akita Shoten that were interested in helping with the project, and even plans on bringing the original artist from the G4 manga, Millfish. And that's just on the production side, because the story that we would have had was incredible, taking aspects and concepts of the G5 movie, show, and even the comics to create the best version of the G5 story we possibly could have had. While the G5 world we got felt stale, boring and empty, this one had a much more darker and dystopian feel. Part of that came from the fact that took parts and pieces from the original pitch for G5. Like Merchant Bay being a city surrounded by an impenetrable wall, and a society that is extremely dependent on technology to function, or Zephyr Heights being under a monarchy that in the outside looks nice, prosperous and perfect, but in the inside is rotten and corrupt. And the only location that didn't change that much was Bridlewood. But the locations weren't the only thing that changed, as they were new ideas that we would have seen in the manga, like an underground city of changelings underneath Zephyr Heights, a war for Bridlewood between the unicorns, Deer and Kirin, and even a realm called the Underworld, which would have been these versions of Tartarus. Aside of that, we would have seen a world that was more broken and dystopian, full of old artifacts, weapons, and even relics of the old world. And it wasn't only the world, as our main six also shared this aspect, specifically their traits and what they would have represented. While in G4, our main six represented all positive traits such as happiness, kindness, and generosity, this version of G5 would have highlighted traits like envy, fragility, sorrow, and narcissism. And while weird, the reason why it was like this is because Yuki wanted the main six to go from representing the worst aspects of their societies to their best. This would have highlighted the changes that our main characters would gone through in the run of the story in a more compelling way. And now that we're in that topic, like I said before, the story of the manga would have been a retelling of the story we all know about rediscovering the pony races and bringing back magic, although with one major difference. Well, A lot of differences, actually. For one, there would have been a little bit of magic left in the world, this being via artifacts. One of these holders would have been Izzy, having a crystal that would have granted her the ability to use ice powers. Another one would have been the initial villain of the story, which in this case would have been Pip, something that we would have seen in the original draft of the New Generation movie. And finally, the ending, where it's revealed that the reason why Izzy went to Merchant Bay in the first place wasn't to attack the city, but rather because her crystal guided her there, a crystal that will later be revealed to be part of the Elements of Harmony. Another thing that was radically changed were the villains in the second arc of the story. It's no surprise that G5 never had a villain, or at least never had a concrete villain to the story. Most of them came and went, some never really were developed fully, and others were huge letdowns. And that's something that the manga would have solved pretty easily by making Opaline and Misty the main villains of the story. I know this decision is going to make some Misty fans incredibly mad, but how it would have worked inside of the story, it actually made sense. In this version, Opaline is described as a magic keeper from ancient Equestria. She has been collecting and to a lesser extent controlling the very limited magic that this world already has. But now that magic is back, she has one goal: to rise up as Equestria's new ruler no matter the cost. And the one who would have assisted her was Misty. Misty in this version is not a good pony, and at times she would have been worse than Opaline. In the beginning she would have been cold and calculating, thinking of plans to get rid of the main five, and in the expand of the story she would have gotten more and more unhinged the more the story went on. And the reason? Because Misty is jealous of Sunny, not because of her friendships, but rather because she can't outsmart her, something that Opaline would have mocked her, telling her how is it possible that a powerless earth pony outsmarted her. This taking a toll on Misty, and would have been the catalyst for her actions later in the story, from putting ponies in danger just for fun, to Philly getting hurt because she unleashed the Truggles upon Merchant Bay, and creating a pony from junk and giving them life to spy on the main five, which backfires when her creation rebels against her, and instead of hearing him out or trying to make a deal with him, she instead kills it because they don't have any value left for her. And through these failures, she would have realized something. She doesn't need Opaline. She doesn't need anyone. The only thing that she needs is herself. And with the help of a very dangerous kind of magic, this will be easier than she might think. This Misty, and to a lesser extent Opaline, sound more interesting than the ones in the show, and I know why that is. It isn't because they're relatable, but because they were characters that had a purpose in the story. Misty is a tragic character, but she isn't innocent. The things that she does in the manga can't be defended, nor they should, and that's without mentioning what the ending of her initial story would have been. In Volume 6, we would have seen a battle between Sunny and Misty, where in the climax of the story, Misty betrays Opaline and embraces the dark powers of the shadows, transforming her in a huge pony of shadows with blue flames. So basically becoming a female version of Stygian, more specifically this one. But aside of the obvious fan service, the reason why this moment was going to be so important for the story was because it would have set up Opaline's reformation. After seeing what she had created, Opaline, in a chance to get Misty back, joins the main five, which from a redemption standpoint sounds interesting and something that we didn't see that much on G4. And Misty's plan being to destroy each universe that has the main five, but thanks to Sunny's intelligence and her friends, they defeat Misty, although shattering her horn in the process. And with that, everything goes back to normal, and with the group having a potentially new ally with Opaline and Misty being sent to a containment cell in Merchant Bay, the main five go back to their normal lives. Or so they thought. And that was the story of the manga, and how we know all of this is thanks to Yuki Sakuro himself. Without him, we wouldn't known all of the details about the world, story, and new arcs, as he has been pretty vocal about what his concepts would have been in local conventions and interviews, and even who the true villain of the story would have been, which I know a lot of people wouldn't have liked, but it would have been Twilight and Spike, or at least a corrupted version of them. They would have been the ones that manipulated Opaline, the ones that left every spell and book Misty would have used in the run of the story, and the ones that would have wanted to rule Equestria once again. And while a crazy reveal, Yuki Sakuro did this because he felt that symbolizing the new main five defeating the old icons of Equestria would have been a cool idea, quite literally meaning leaving the old heroes behind and a new generation being born. But that was everything that we know about what the manga would have been, which is fascinating how a very passionate fan not only wants to make a great story, but also something new that was never done before, but that in the end, because of bad timing and Hasbro, never came out. As when Hasbro cancelled G5, this project was also cancelled, and it will probably never come out. Yuki Sakuro has moved on from the project and has moved on to other projects, MOP and not MOP related. And it's a shame because this project had potential and could have been a spark of life for a dying generation, and who knows, maybe one that would have been as, if not more successful than the movie, shows or comics ever were. But that's just me, so tell me what are your thoughts on the G5 manga, and would have you wanted to see it come out? Leave it down in the comments. And remember, like the video if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing for more videos like this one. And before I go, I just want to do a quick announcement. We have a new outro, and it was made by the very talented Twital. Go show him some support. And this was a very quick commission, and basically it's just my outro animated in his style. So here it is. And as for me, remember, take care, stay creative, and I'll see you in my next video.